I am really excited to introduce you to someone who is going by a few names at the moment. So this is Fran. She's known online as Martha Stewish. So obviously the play on Martha Stewart. I started following you on TikTok. I saw your content when, you were like an itty bitty creator, just sort of starting out. And I just thought you had 100,000 followers by the way that you were presenting yourself, how you communicated, the type of content. And then I went to your page and thought, oh my gosh, like this girl is going to be something. And I think I slid in your DMs and just said, hey, like, let's be friends. I love your content. Please keep going. And now to see where you are and your platform is growing and finding your niche, it's just so exciting. So I'm very excited to have you on the podcast. And I would love to hear where the inspiration came for Martha Stewart. Obviously, it makes sense for us like millennials, Martha Stewart, but what sort of clicked in that head? And you said that this was like 1 year ago today.
Yeah. So, first of all, I am so grateful that you reached out to me when you did, because in those beginning times I think I had like maybe 1,000 followers. And you reached out to me, and I remember messaging my whole family and being like, oh my God, this woman, Allyn in America has, well, at the time I thought you were in America, but that she's got like 100,000 followers on Instagram, and she says that I'm doing something really like special and good here. And it was just like such a confidence boost that I think so many people don't realize when you're already big, how much those kind of things mean to the smaller creators. So I feel like I try and do that as much as I can now, because you can see people who are going to make it quite quickly, I think, just by like vibes. But I basically actually realized that I started exactly a year ago today. I was having one of these days where I was thinking, what am I doing in life? Like, what's my plan? And I just had this like universal ping that said, start recording yourself gardening. I think I'd started gardening probably a month or two before that, and was trying to educate myself on gardening. So I was watching quite a few TikToks on how it all worked, and I didn't know anything about gardening. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll record myself, because I just want to learn how to edit and film videos and that kind of thing. And I literally, it came to me in like a second. It was like, obviously my name's going to be Martha Stewart, because it's like I'm trying to be like Martha Stewart, who's the most phenomenal gardener in the world, and I'm just a little bit like her. I'm like ish. So that's where it came from. And then I have since really pivoted, although I still absolutely love my garden. I have since pivoted into something that I do for work, which is finance, and something I understand quite well. And now I talk about personal finance and intentional spending for women, because I feel like it's just such an underserved community, and it comes so naturally to me. You think you choose what you think your niche is going to be, and then your audience very quickly like decides for you, which was such an interesting experience for me, because I had so many of my friends say to me like, the way you talk about money is like so interesting, and the way that you explain things is quite digestible for people who aren't in finance. Maybe that should be what you talk about. And for ages, I kind of just ignored them. And then I think I must have put some kind of video out that suddenly moved me into the space where people were like, okay, this makes sense to who she is. And then that's where it came from.
Well, I love this. And I feel like we have 100 different veins to talk about, and we may have to make like a
Yeah.
two-parter podcast. I think there are so many great creators out there that, like you said, they just feel stuck when the numbers are low, because it's demoralizing. You're putting
It
yourself
really
out
is.
there. You think you're creating good content. You'll spend a whole day putting effort into this video to get 100 views. And then the video you post about like your pasta dinner is the one that pops off. And it's like, okay, God, like whatever, like we'll pick the lane. But I feel like I had sort of a similar situation as you, where I've been posting about preventive healthcare. I work in that space, I run a nonprofit, but that just wasn't going anywhere. And I understand obviously that, there are only so many people that want to hear about like their breast health. But I had a few friends that just said, hey, you competed in pageants. Why don't you talk about pageants, or, something that's like unique to you in your everyday life? So I just posted this little video of me taking these hair clips down. I'd like do my hair in this little, pinned up George Washington curl sort of thing. And it got 8 million views, like off the jump. And I just said, okay, all right, I have all these questions, people asking for a tutorial, posted the tutorial, like boom, 6 million followers. And then I think I was stuck at probably 25,000 followers on Instagram. And it went from 25,000 to 100,000 in probably 3 months. And I only posted maybe 6 videos. It was just this hair video thing that like took off like crazy. And I said, okay, like people are craving learning how to do these things. And I think it really like, it was this all encompassing thing for me. So growing up, like my mom died when I was really young. I didn't have somebody to teach me how to, put the lipstick on the pig, do my hair, like look presentable. And I taught myself that, but it was like before the internet, really before YouTube. And it was just so much harder. And I think now we're so spoiled for choice online with all of these things, but people just want the basic break it down, like how to do this. And so I said, you can do this with a $10 curling iron and a pack of duck clips. And I think it's the same thing with your content now. You're breaking down finance to people in a way that, like you said, it's easily digestible, it's easy to understand. And just watching your videos has made me more cognizant of what I'm doing with my money and where I'm spending my money because, we're both around the same age. I think you're 35, I'm 38. You get to this point where you're like, okay, well, I'm getting close to the point where I really need to start thinking about retirement and savings and all of this. And I mean, for you, it might be a little bit different, but finance was never a conversation for me growing up. It's not something that anybody taught me. Like, I'm just grateful that I'm not like, blowing through my credit card at the end of the month. And so I think there are a lot of women out there who have not learned anything and they feel very intimidated by it. What would you say for somebody, you've built your platform now around money? Like, what was your relationship with money prior to starting all of this?
Really interestingly, I grew up in a household where my dad is a chartered accountant. So he was very financially savvy, but to a point, so finances was never a stressful thing in our household because he was particularly frugal. But I think it made me think of money in a scarce mindset. And so every opportunity I had to save money, I would save it instead of spending. There was almost a thrill to saving, and there was a thrill to depriving myself of things that I wanted, because I think that was kind of what was modeled to me, was only stupid people would, buy the BMW. It's almost like bad to be frivolous and enjoy your money. And that served me really well because it meant that I invested in my pension from the beginning of starting work, which was when I was 23. And I actually looked the other day and I thought, like, it was just interesting that I invested in that account, well, in the pension fund. And I think in the US, in the US, is the mindset, is a 401k something that work puts money into?
Exactly. So you put in a certain
in
percentage, yeah, and sometimes your company will match it.
More, whatever. Yes, okay. So exactly like that, I had my pension in the UK. So from 2015 to 2021, the 6 years that I was working at that company, I put in £48,000. And I checked that account the other day. So I haven't invested in that account since 2021, and it's now worth £115,000. So just by having someone like my dad, who was like, save, he always says save and save hard. So saving into my pension, just by having someone to give me that information early on when I didn't even really know what I was doing, and for me to just listen to him, has meant that I've kind of, I've more than doubled that money. And I think I took for granted for a long time that I had that kind of financial education, and I thought that everyone had it. And I think that being online and potentially posting that first video that I did about money, which I can't even remember what it was, and having the comments come back made me realize that I was very privileged to have had someone to guide me in that way from an early age. Because the thing that you kind of need to build wealth, if you're not, someone who's going to sell a startup or come into a big inheritance or whatever, is time. And time in the market is what builds wealth.
Right. No, and you're completely right. And I mean, it's not that my parents were bad with money. My mom, I think, was great with money, but she passed away obviously when I was really young. And, my dad was just distracted with life, and it's not like he had some great finance background. He ended up sort of lucking into having a successful business, but he didn't grow wealth through investing. It
Yeah.
was, hey, here's this great business. This business made money. But for so many people, like you said, maybe they don't have a large income, or even if they do, they don't know what to do with that money. And
Yeah.
when I had first started this podcast, one of the first episodes I did, we didn't end up getting to air it. We had some technical problems. We had talked to somebody who, was a finance educator. And it was just people don't even know what a stock is.
I
Like,
know.
how do you invest in, what's a portfolio? What's a stock? What is there an app that I can use? How do I download it? Can everybody do it? How do I move money from my bank account to, buy stocks? Like, these are just sort of foreign concepts to people. And there are very few people who are breaking it down to like a granular level of, hey, I was today years old when I learned this. Let me walk you through it. And so just those basic steps, like it helps.
I've definitely, like, the reason why I think I break it down the way I do is because I needed it broken down that way. I didn't realize for a very long time that putting money into a pension or a 401k is investing. So if you have a pension or a 401k, you are an investor. I didn't know that. Like, I work in finance and I did not know that. So there, and things like talking about people saying stocks and shares and then also using the word equity. Stocks, shares, equity means the same thing. So
Right.
why do we have to complicate things to kind of make them feel like they're really inaccessible? I just think there's just been this, like, it's almost like gatekeeping. And I think we as women think that it's only for men. And then there are even men who think, oh, this is only for really wealthy men. And then there's actually this whole big group of people who could be investing who aren't. And you also don't need to have super phenomenal knowledge about investing to invest. Like, I don't pick my own stocks. I just put my money in a fund, which is where someone else has got a shopping basket and they put eggs, they put bananas, they put cucumbers, they put all different things in the basket. And their entire job is to pick to pick stocks and shares. So their job is to pick the companies that they think are going to do well. So I outsource that. I let someone else choose the stocks and shares for me, and that's called a fund or a portfolio. Again, you've got two different words that mean exactly the same thing and overcomplicate it. And someone else makes those decisions for me so that I can just send the money every month, not have to think about it, and be rest assured that that money is going to grow.
I think there's a lot of stress, particularly for women around money. And I mean, I have a master's degree in law. I'm a fairly educated person. I've lived in multiple countries. I feel like I should be someone that's more knowledgeable about it, but I married a CFO. I don't really have anything to do with our finances. I have my own money I invest on the side, but I do the opposite. I pick stocks that I think are going to perform well sort of in the short term. Like, oh, I feel the cultural pulse changing here. And I
Yeah.
actually did very, very well when COVID happened because I just started thinking, what are people going to invest in? And I invested in
Wow.
those things, or even simple stuff like investing in McDonald's or investing in, when we're having all these riots and stuff in the United States, like investing in gun stocks. Like, I know the American sentiment around that, and they just skyrocketed. And so I think people are scared to do that. And I think they should be weary of it, obviously, because it can be a very
Yeah.
volatile thing. But learning that you can just go in, invest in a fund, and have pretty decent returns, like 8, 10%,
Yeah.
every single year, letting somebody else really do the hard work. How would you give advice for someone who's like, hey, I want to get started? Like, where's the first place to start?
Okay, so because I'm not a financial advisor, we have to kind of put a disclaimer that this is not financial advice and that people always need to do their own research. Um, and the other thing that I kind of always say, because I think it's easy to get carried away with the excitement of investing and stuff, is that number one, if you have any debt that you're paying off that is attracting interest, you should be paying that off first. Once that's paid off, you should be accumulating an emergency fund. So putting money in a high interest savings account, for instance, that is easy access. So for instance, if my family lives in South Africa, if tomorrow I had to fly home at a moment's notice and the only flight I could get was a business class flight, that was the last seat on the plane, do I have £5,000 or whatever it would be available
Right.
for me to transfer immediately to get home? That is really important. So I really say you pay off your debt so you're not paying interest. Then you have an emergency fund of money that you can access very easily. And then only should you be thinking about investing in the stock market. And I'm sure that like you would have had those things set up. But for instance, because you are in a relationship with someone else, you had the opportunity to invest in things. And like if the money went, because this is the thing about investing, they always say capital at risk. What it means is you could put £100 in today and it could be worth zero tomorrow. So you've always got to have that, remember that in the back of your mind. So for you to be able to invest in those things, you're very lucky that they went up, but there's a chance that they go down. And if you're in a situation where you're putting your life savings in a particular stock and it goes to zero, the value goes to zero. You have no more money left over. So that's why I always like to say, please, like, remember, you pay off your debts, then you have an emergency fund, then you only start dabbling in investing. The easiest way to do it is to be someone who contributes to your pension, because then you are investing in a solid fund that you don't have to pick any stocks and shares. It's also great because I'm not sure what the rule is in the US, but in the UK, you can't access that money until you're 57, which means that it's being invested for the long term. So you can't get a fright when the market crashes and pull the money out. You actually can't. So, or potentially if you did, you would get like massively penalized. So there's just no point in doing it. There's no incentive to take the money out early. So those are the kind of things that I think help you put as many barriers in place as you can so that you aren't trading the market and when there's a drop, get a panic and get a fright and pull the money out. That would be my number one thing, is put money in your pension, because the thing that grows wealth is time, and your pension is your best example of that. Like the example I gave of, I've grown that money in the 5 years since I left that company, that money has doubled. And I still can't access it. So I'm 35 now, I can access that money when I'm 57. So in 5 years, it's doubled. In the next 22 years, it's going to do even more, which is just insane. It's amazing. So I would say pension is number one. And then I would say I don't do what you do because I'm quite risk adverse. So I don't buy individual stocks. But number one, I don't buy individual stocks because I'm risk adverse. And number two, I don't buy them because I'm not that interested in it, which I know is weird to hear from a finance person, but like I'm actually just interested in making the gains. So for me, I like the safety of knowing that someone else is going to look after that money for me. And if you are investing on your own, let's say the stock market does crash and that money you put in does drop, you're in control of whether you sell those shares or you keep them in the market, that decision. But if you're in a fund, you don't make the decision on the individual shares. So it's quite a kind of, an active fund manager is quite useful in a downturn market because they'll adjust the fund to reduce your losses, if that makes sense. Obviously, you invest on your own, like your own, if you bought an Apple share or whatever, and the stock market did really well, or Apple did really well, you would make the gains, but no one is coming to save you if Apple does really badly. Whereas in an active fund case, your gains might be slightly less or less than if you just bought one stock, because it's more of an aggregation of a whole lot of stocks. But someone kind of does come to save you if the stock market goes down, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. And I think you have to identify your pain points, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, if you are a risk averse person. So I am married to the world's most risk averse person. So when the market crashes or something bad happens, like he's the first one that wants to kind of panic sell things. And I'm like, ride it out. Ride the wave. Like if he could do a Scrooge McDuck and put all of the pennies like in one room and just look at them, like that's what he would prefer to do. I have a little bit more of a risk tolerance. And there are things that I've lost on. So I invested in DocuSign. So everybody listening probably knows DocuSign. Obviously, you're signing these contracts. I did that during COVID when they were having this crazy spike. And I thought I was buying in relatively early, but after we stopped needing digital contracts for absolutely everything, it completely crashed, and I've lost almost everything that I put into that. But thankfully I had these other stocks on the side that helped sort of balance that out. But it is a lottery and it is a risk. And so, like you said, buying into a fund, I think, is a great way to sort of dip your toe into it and feel a bit safer about it. Something you also do and talk about online, which I think is very aligned with our audience, is you talk about rich girl habits. And these are things that you do in your everyday life that help you get to where you want to be financially, being conscious, de-influencing yourself from like these impulse buys. So where did you get this idea from, and like where did it come from inside of you?
So these habits are habits that I think have been drilled into me since I was young, like paying your future self first. So that means, putting money in your pension or saving money. I think the rich girl part is like a bit provocative because I think people, they're kind of not really, they don't feel like rich girl habits because people think like, oh, if you're so rich, like, why are you being so like sensible or, all those kind of things. But I
Right.
actually just think that it's a mindset. The richest people know how to invest. They know about time in the market. So that's why they do pay their future selves first. That's why they probably don't get influenced by the latest fashion or the latest trends because they don't have that desire to kind of show wealth. And that's why I quite like the idea of like quiet wealth and quiet luxury because it really is like wealth whispers. And I sometimes think that like, when you don't have money, you kind of scream. You kind of, you get it, you get a check in the mail and then you'll buy the designer item to kind of show that you're doing well. But the wealthiest people, you probably don't even know they're wealthy because nothing on the outside shows you that they're wealthy. It's the systems that they've built internally and the value systems that they have that mean that they are very happy with the life that they have without showing it on the outside.
When I think too, when you're around wealthy people, and I have been in my life, their tastes and their preference matter a lot more, I'd say, than somebody who's trying to cosplay wealth, where
Yeah.
they're buying based on the taste of the moment versus what they actually love or what adds value to their life. And I really love when you touch on that of picking things that you don't have to be the most frugal person in the world. You don't have to
Yeah.
deprive yourself of everything. It's okay to want things that are aesthetically pleasing. It's okay to want things that add comfort and freedom, and you always talk about these four things like freedom, comfort, simplicity, and beauty. And I
Yeah.
love that because it allows people to not feel stress and anxiety about discretionary spending, about things that they want to spend their money on. Like that's okay, but it's being more mindful of it. So, how would you think is the best way for people to start being more mindful of where their money goes?
So that value-based spending came for me from a place of necessity because I was in such a mindset of deprivation to build wealth that I wasn't actually enjoying any of the money that I was spending. And every time I did spend money, I'd feel so guilty about it that it would kind of like negate the nice thing that I bought myself. And so I spent some time thinking about how I felt when I spent money on certain things. And what's interesting is the person who I come to blows with, I guess, the most about spending is my dad. Like growing up, the things that I value and the things that he valued were so different that I used to think of the way that he spent as really like frugal and stingy. But actually, he was totally happy with the way that he spent because his values were different to mine. So for my
Right.
parents, for instance, they love to travel. And so they will spend lots of money on traveling, but they don't care which hotel they stay in, for instance, because potentially comfort is not on top of their priority list, whereas experiences are really valuable to them. So, if we go on holiday and there's a scuba trip or a boat trip or something, and it costs a lot of money, my dad won't even think twice about us doing that. Like, of course we will do it. Whereas if you had that same amount of money to spend on a hotel room, he would be like, no, that's crazy. And we used to come to blows about that quite a lot growing up. And then I actually realized that like he is the epitome of someone who spends based on his own values. He's not feeling deprived in the life that he lives because he spends in his own values. So every single person has such different value systems. And what I found really useful was looking at my bank statement and going through it. And I know for so many people that's such a scary thing to do, but it's almost like something I just feel like you've just got to like rip the band-aid and just go for it and have a look. And also come at it from a place of curiosity, not a place of judgment. Like having a look through your bank statement to see like, how did I feel when I, went out, and like, I'm guilty of doing this and I feel annoyed about it every time I do it. But like, how did I feel when I went out for drinks that I wasn't planning to go out for, and I ended up having like 6 margaritas? I felt terrible the next day. I had fun, but like, I didn't have more fun because I had 6 margaritas. And then the next day
Right.
I ordered Deliveroo, and then like, I actually went to bed feeling sleep deprived and awful. And yes, I had a great time with my friends, but like, those things, the margaritas and the Deliveroo is not the reason why I had a great time with my friends. So
Yeah.
for me, I realized like, spending on those things is like not something that I want to prioritize. Whereas, that same night I could have got an Uber home and I wouldn't have thought twice about it. For me, that's like the epitome of treating myself with respect, is getting home safely. I'm comfortable. I don't have to, navigate a million different trains and tubes and all that kind of stuff. And so for me, that is money well spent. And you could say to me like, do you want to spend £100 on an Uber or £100 on margaritas? I'm telling you, I would choose to spend the £100 on an Uber. But I have friends who will happily spend £100 on a night out, but they will get the bus home. They won't get the Uber home because to them, the value exchange is not right. So it's not, they spend £100, they don't feel like they're getting £100 of value back. So I think you've like really got to kind of think about it for yourself. And then I've got other friends who like similar kind of thing. I don't spend much on clothing. Like I like good fabrics, but I can find cashmere and linens and those sorts of things on Vinted, or Depop or any of those kind of like resale sites quite easily, and charity shops. But I know people, I have a friend, for instance, and I'll get an Uber home. I won't even think twice about it. She will buy cashmere coats. She has the most beautiful wardrobe, and she spends a lot of money on clothing. But she will never, ever get an Uber home. And I always find it so funny because she will be looking the most glamorous and she's happy to hop on the bus on the way home. Like she doesn't look like someone who would get on a bus, but she does.
Yeah, you look at the Sex and the City girls, and it's kind of like that. Like Carrie wants to see
Yes.
her money, in her wardrobe, and
Yeah.
that's what brings her comfort. And yeah, I'm with you. And I think what's scary about looking at the bank statement is it's a little bit like looking in the mirror. And it's the same thing with judging how you've spent things and how they're adding quality to your life. Because if you're looking at the margaritas you bought, then the next day of delivering food, the getting the home, feeling bad, then you maybe have to change something about yourself. Maybe you have
Yeah.
to change the habit. And that's tough. And then once you're looking at the bank statement, it feels like, okay, well, that was like yesterday's problem. But then you're having to face the reality. I spent this. I made this choice. It's a lot of self-reflection that I think
Yeah.
we tend to avoid now. Like we always have a phone in front of our face. We're distracting ourselves from our own thoughts. And I think it's a little bit of distracting ourselves from our own actions too. And
So
I am
true.
completely guilty of that. I have a lot of financial anxiety, even though I'm in a very
Interesting.
privileged position to not be that way. But I do every time I have to look at what my Amex bill is. It's like,
Why do you
just like
think
I
you
want to
feel that
click the pay
way?
button. I
I'd
don't
love
know.
times
And
like,
I've
okay.
talked about this in therapy. Like, I really don't know where it comes from because I didn't have parents that talked from a place of lack. There was never
Okay.
that sort of communication. And I know you talked a little bit about that online, how you speak about money impacts how you feel about it. And I had friends growing up whose parents would always say, we can't afford that. We can't have that.
Yes.
That's not something our family can afford. And I thought, even as a little kid, man, that must make them feel horrible and anxious. And anytime something comes up, it's, well, mommy and daddy can't afford that. And I find
Yes.
that to be child abuse and
Yeah,
nothing
how
that
do you how
someone
do you
should.
speak to your kids about money? Because I so agree with you. I think so many parents, I don't think you realize the impact of of a child hearing that the people that they trust to provide everything for them is saying, we actually can't provide this thing for you because we can't afford it.
Yeah,
It's actually so powerful. And it only really occurred to me like later in life how that phrase is thrown around, but it's actually kind of damaging.
it's very toxic. And I would avoid that like the plague with my children. I always just say, we're not going to get that right now. We're not going to do that right
Okay.
now. And I think it frames the
That shows
mindset
you're in
of,
control. I feel like that shows
yeah,
that you as the parent are in control. We're saying we can't afford it. That's like the parent is not, doesn't feel like the parent's in control.
Well, and it's this we, like they
Yeah.
somehow are
Oh
contributing
yeah.
to this. Our family doesn't have that, and if you want something, you're taking from the comfort and safety of our family. Like that's always how I processed it as a kid.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I really don't know where the stress comes from. I think because it's more a self-reflection thing. I know that I am not as conscious about my spending as I should be. And I think that there's a little bit of shame around that, that I know better. I know how to do it. I have access to it, and I'm still not doing it. So maybe there's just like internalized shame around that. And I don't know. I think somehow I've just been really lucky in my life that even though I'm not a budgeter, I'm not thinking about it, I've never put myself in a bad situation because I have a little bit of financial anxiety. Like the scariest thing in the world to me would be to be in debt. And so again, privileged take, but it gives me a lot of stress to even think about it or talk about it. And like my husband will sit me down sometimes and, be like, well, why did we order carry out 50 times last month, like cook for the children, and I just get
Yeah.
stressed and anxious. And he's like, look, the house is not on fire. We're just chatting here. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
You
think
feel
I
like
think
you're
a
getting
lot
in
of people
trouble
feel that
almost,
way.
but you're
I,
not.
I do feel like
Yeah.
I'm getting in trouble. Yeah. And even
Yeah.
if it's
And he's not
like
delivering it in that way. It's like something internal.
absolutely not. Yeah, and I mean
Yeah.
I'm married to a German person, he can be a little critical, but I know at the end of the day, I always say, my money is my money and his money is our money. And so that's always how he treats me too. And so there's absolutely no reason for me to have that sort of anxiety around it. But it
Yeah.
does live deep inside of me. And I always wonder if that's just a female thing where we're always taught like, okay, well, you marry somebody and they take care of it, and the women aren't involved in finance. And I think our generation is really the first ones who are saying no, like I want to
Yeah.
take the power back, I want to be involved, I want to know what's going on. And I think about it with my
Yeah.
husband, I'm like, what if he dropped dead tomorrow?
Yeah.
What we
So
do? Do
scary.
I know about all the bank accounts? Like, do I know where things are going? How would I take care of our kids and our family with these very basic things? Of course, my name is on all the accounts, but I'm not checking them. I'm not looking at
Yeah.
it. Like, that's his thing. I have my lane of things that I manage.
Yeah.
But a lot of women are in that position. I even have not a close friend of mine, but a good acquaintance whose husband just died unexpectedly. And it was up to her to take care of everything. What would you recommend to women to maybe take away some of that anxiety?
Yeah. Um, I I think it's so important to have the conversation with your partner about finances, purely for that exact reason. And I think you wouldn't want your loved one to be in a situation where they're grieving and they're now financially stressed because they don't know about they don't know anything about the financial situation. So now they're like double whammy on like how bad it could be. So I think like you've got to have these conversations as a couple. And like I'm not in a relationship, so it's very easy for me to sit on the side and say like, oh well, it's like obviously you guys be talking about this kind of stuff. I know there's so much nuance to it, but yeah, you would just you hope that the person that you are with wants you to be empowered to have that information just in case like something like that happened. But something I
Yeah.
wanted to say to something that you said earlier about getting, I assume carryover is like a DoorDash type of like delivery type of thing that you're
Oh,
talking
I
about.
just
Like,
like carry out food, or
okay.
you
Oh,
either
like
pick it
takeaway or
up or
whatever.
you
What
deliver
about
it. Exactly.
what about if you flip that on its head and instead of, because this is kind of what I had to do about shame around, for instance, buying beautiful things. Like, what if you flip that on its head and say, maybe something that you really value and that you give yourself every month is convenience? Maybe, like, as a mom, convenience is something that is very, very valuable. And so you are giving yourself that convenience that your children are fed. You don't have to stress about getting groceries. You don't have to take up the brain space to think about things. So convenience might be something that you really value. And then you shouldn't feel guilty for spending on that thing. You should feel grateful that you can afford yourself that thing that makes your life just a little bit easier.
I think my problem is I give myself too much grace and I can rationalize anything. But I do agree. Like I was diagnosed with ADHD about 2 years ago, and learning about how my brain works has completely changed my life. And I realize like you'll see a lot of content online where people talk about it and they say the only cure to ADHD is money. It's being able to buy comforts and convenience to sort of flip the script on where your brain may fail or may not function like a neurotypical person. So for
Very
me, like
interesting.
having someone help clean my home, getting the groceries delivered, like you said, on the nights where I just can't do the dinner, those sort of creature comfort conveniences are life changing to me. And I can justify them to myself, but I'm also not the only person in this household, and I have to be able to justify them to, my partner. And I think there is a happy medium there. But
Yeah.
I agree. If you feel a lot of shame around spending, it is very important to frame it in what is actually adding quality to my life. And I think there's a
Exactly.
fine line between like quality additions to my life and major comforts that aren't maybe necessarily like they aren't a necessity for you. But not
Yeah.
all spending has to be functional, right? And like you talk about this a little
No.
bit, with your like beauty products, and maybe we flip
Yeah.
it to a little more lighthearted conversation. You always go through your empties of, hey, here's a product that I used. I'm using it until the end before I go buy myself something. And I think that we get especially women really caught up in trends and wanting to try new things. And
Oh
I
my
mean, I'm
God. It's
guilty of it too. Like
relentless.
I have 100 million products. And then, add to that working in the influencer space and people are just sending you like crap that you don't even want all the time. But when you look at it, like what are the things you actually use
Yeah.
consistently in your life? Do you find it to be a shockingly limited number like I do, where you might have 100 things, but you're using the same five things every day?
Well, yes, and my makeup the other day I was looking like I've got it all my makeup fits into a pouch that's kind of this big. And that's like where all I in my head I thought like, oh, that's all the makeup that I use all the time. And then I had to take a smaller pouch to work that's honestly like this big, and I
Uh
put
huh.
about 5 beauty products in there that are honestly actually the only things that I use at the moment. And I realized like even me, someone who is so like particular about what I add to my life and finishing products, I still have excess. It's so easy to get caught up in like all the this is gonna change your life, this is gonna make you look amazing, all these things. Something that I actually really like took heed of that Pooja said in her episode was
Mm-hmm.
about like how a lot of the time the thing that makes these celebrities and models and stuff look so good is actually like the beauty treatments that they're having. So yes, they can put,
Right.
the Maybelline foundation on and show you what they look like and they look amazing. But that's quite a good reminder to be like, she does look amazing in that product, but it's probably not just that product. So me just buying that product is not going to completely revolutionize my life and
Right.
change everything. And like actually, if I could, I was thinking about it the other day. So have you heard of this brand Merit? I'm sure you have. It's
Yeah.
like
Love
everywhere.
Merit.
Yeah. So I bought their foundation brush recently, and it's phenomenal. I absolutely love it. Like it quite kind of like blows my mind how nice it makes my makeup look. Like because I'm using pretty basic products, and I think like if there was like a fire or my makeup all got ruined or stolen, I think I would just buy the Merit like starter pack. I kind of just feel like I
Mm-hmm.
trust them now. I would have a bronzer, a blush, a mascara, a foundation stick, and a blush brush, and that's it. I would be done.
Yeah. I mean, I competed at Miss USA 15 years ago, which is insane to say.
Wow.
But the products that a makeup artist told me to buy then,
Yeah.
I have not really found anything better. And it has been
Really?
the
That's
same
so amazing.
thing. Yeah, and there are a few things I try here and there where I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Or the formulations of things sort of change over time. Like I have the Merit cream blush, which I really like. And before I was using a lot of powders, and obviously my skin has changed as I've gotten older. But
Yeah.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And
So
it
with
goes back to
you.
the same hair thing. Like I've been doing the same
Yeah.
hairstyle. And please, if you're watching this on YouTube, like I'm sweating to death, didn't do my hair today. But that same style, it's classic, it's timeless. Like it's that
Yeah.
perfect old school blowout hair. Like that's never
Yeah.
going
Looks
out of
great.
style. And
Yeah.
buying the tools and learning the technique to do that, you know, we're not all in like middle part slick back buns. Like this is just not a
Yeah.
sustainable thing. So you don't need 500 products to achieve that like
No.
trendy look. And, I always tell people like, if you find something great for you, just stick with it. And that was
Yeah.
like a question that I had where you said sometimes you'll try new products, and I know how mindful you are of using the product to the end, but I wanted to ask you, have you ever been in a position where you've bought something new and it has been so fucking horrible that you're like, I just have to go buy something else? Like, will you give yourself the grace to
Yes.
go get something else?
I'm in a situation like that at the moment with the mascara that I bought. And I've just seen that Merit's come out with like a tubing mascara, and I had it in my cart and I was like, do I just do it? Like, I've only had this other mascara for a week, but like, I'm just not happy with it. Am I going to spend the next 3 months of my life using I think it was like an £8 mascara and hating it
Right.
every time? I think probably not. I'm probably just going to have to get rid of it. There's obviously so much nuance to this stuff, and particularly the wrong color foundation. Like, if you have the wrong color foundation,
Right.
what are you meant to do? You can't use it,
Right. Well,
particularly if it's too dark. I've actually got a NARS foundation that I stupidly bought in the airport, and I feel like you should never buy makeup in the airport because the lighting in there is so different
fluorescent
to normal
lighting,
life.
terrible.
I wish there was some kind of like online, or even not online, like community makeup swapping thing, because you can't send these things back once you've tried them or once you've used and realized it's not for you. But there'll be someone for someone else that'll be the perfect color, and like, instead of it being wasted, could I not just like swap it with them? I'm sure there are a whole lot of like health and safety standards that mean we can't do that, but I just think it's such a shame that we can't just all swap.
I'm with you. And sometimes, like, one great thing about Germany is everybody just leaves stuff on the streets or they leave stuff
Yes,
downstairs
same
at their
here.
building. Yeah. And just have people like come and pick it up. And I do that a lot. I just leave it downstairs.
Yeah,
And it's obviously used stuff, but if people don't care, or if it's like,
yeah,
I don't know what I even have, I just got this new foundation and you just squeeze it out so it's not getting contaminated.
yeah,
But yeah, I always think when it comes to replacing products, like it'll be something like I will have bought a $3 glass cleaner or something and it sucks.
yeah,
And I feel guilty about it and it's sitting in my cabinet and I'm like, would I pay $3 to have that cabinet space back? Yes, throw it away. And so that's
yeah.
what I do with these products. Like, would I pay $3 to not spend the next month with a blush that is the wrong color for
Yeah,
me?
you feel dreadful.
Yes.
I think the thing that's like so important, and the reason why I'm able to underconsume, and I feel like a fraud saying underconsume because I think it's just like normal consumption, but the way that we live now is that like
Right.
everyone by default just overconsumes. But like, I consume probably way more than my parents do or my grandparents would have, back in the day. So I
Yeah.
probably still am over consuming, but I'm consuming less than most people. And I think it's because when I buy something, I make sure that whatever I add to my life, it needs to be something that elevates my life. So, like, if, for instance, the blush, I will spend the time and effort to go to the beauty counter to find the right blush so that when I put blush on every single day, I'm really happy and I feel like I look good. And then that means that when I'm fed with an advert for a new blush that's going to, change your life and revolutionize everything, I'm not tempted because I'm in such a like stable, happy like relationship with my blush that like I don't need to look elsewhere, if that makes sense. And I think like that's what I do with all the little things that are in my life. So like I don't feel tempted by things, and particularly in my wardrobe. Like, when I add something to my wardrobe, and I'm not saying I don't buy like designer stuff or anything, but when I add something to my wardrobe, I do think about it, like, how's it going to work with other things? Is it going to fit into this? Is it going to fit into the rest of my collection of things? How does it feel when I wear it? Is it comfortable? And if it's not a hell yes, and I've bought it from a place that I can return it, I will return it because I don't want to have a gap. I don't want to be putting something on that makes me feel mid every day. I want to put something on that I feel fantastic in, so that when I get fed an advert for the same thing, I'm not desperate to go and buy that other thing to see if it could be slightly better. Like, a perfect example for me is white jeans. I don't know if you've ever experienced like the plight of trying to find a good pair of white jeans,
It
but
it's hard. It's really
it's so
hard.
hard. And I feel like so many people have like 6 pairs of like not quite white, not quite right white jeans in their wardrobe. Like, they're too tight, they're a little bit, the waist is wrong, they're the wrong shape, but you're always like striving for this like perfection of a white jean, and you end up with 6 pairs and like none of them make you feel good. Like, I would rather spend the time and energy to find the exact thing that really, really works, so that like piece of me is like sated, and I don't have to get it. Every time I see a pair of white jeans on the internet, I'm not thinking, oh, that could be the pair of white jeans that changed my life, because I've already got a pair in my wardrobe that I absolutely love.
I feel personally victimized by this conversation. Like I
No, but
quite
I've been there.
literally
So like
have
this has literally
six
come from a
pairs.
place of healing. No, it's
Yes.
it's so
Well,
it's so frustrating.
I think having kids and I think living in Europe in general has helped me a lot when it comes to over consuming, simply because you don't have the space. And so,
I so agree.
I mean, I had an entire room as a walk-in closet before I had children. And then now my two little girls are living in that room. So I had to
Yeah.
get rid of two giant wardrobes, basically 50 to 70% of my wardrobe just to give them space to exist in my house. And of course I'm going to do that. They're my children. But I'm working with a very small period now. And then also I've realized, like learning with the ADHD, is visual clutter is very overstimulating for me. I hate having cluttered spaces. And so when I'm bringing something into my home, is it lowering my cortisol? Is it raising my cortisol? Like I value the empty space. And if I'm going to fill it with something, it better be something good.
I
And I think
so
it
feel
takes,
that.
yeah, it takes a lot of time in life, I think, and experience to like get to that point. But after you do, you no longer find the pain in not having everything, I think.
Yeah, totally. I actually think that like one of the blessings of living in a rental helps because you never accumulate, like my parents have been living in the same house for over 30 years. They have accumulated obviously so much stuff, but you can't really accumulate that much stuff because you know it's not permanent. So you kind of don't like bed
Right.
in with all your stuff. And then equally like the storage situation, like I can't even imagine with kids, but like even without kids, like I have no storage and you've just got to like keep it tight. That's why like with my wardrobe, and in some ways it's like such a blessing because it's made me like really particular about what sits in my wardrobe and what doesn't and what takes up space, because the space is at a premium. Like that is prime real estate. I need only the good stuff to be in there and on display. And anything else that's not on display, I'm very unlikely to wear. So then usually I would sell it on Vinted because I'm like, well, if I can't see it, I'm going to forget about it. So it's got to go.
Right. Yeah, this is inspiring me to do one of those like TikToks you see online where people will try on every single piece of clothing in their wardrobe and like look in the mirror and have to be honest with themselves, like, am I ever
Yeah.
going to wear this again? And that was really hard for me because I competed in pageants and did these days where obviously like I'm a size zero. I'm in a
Yeah.
very different chapter of my life. I'm like, am I going to wear the rhinestone crop top that I wore in Las Vegas at Miss USA at like 21? Like, no, I'm not. But then now I have the stress of I have two little girls and I'm like, well, I have to
Oh,
keep everything
yeah.
for them. And so
Yeah.
then like the basement becomes this big storage house for the theoretical clothing that my children are going to like love and admire someday, which is
Yeah.
probably going to end up being zero. But that is tough, but I'm like I think I'm getting to a point where I almost want to get rid of like everything because I know what I like. And then I will
Yeah.
also just,
Same.
you did a video on having a work uniform, and that is me
Oh,
to a T. Like I
yeah.
am Steve Jobs. Like if I could wear the same white t-shirt and jeans every single day for my entire life, that's what I would do. Like I'm
Yeah.
comfortable in it.
Same.
I don't have to think about it. It doesn't take mental space for me. I'm not planning the outfit in the morning. What does that mean for you? Like how do you add that into your daily life?
I love like any kind of system that means that I've thought of something once and I'll think about it once properly. Like don't get me wrong, like my work wardrobe, I didn't just like throw together. It took months to like work out. I took months of wearing different things and then only a few of those outfits would make it into the work wardrobe, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
because it's about how I felt in those things. So like it could be an outfit that's like work appropriate, but if I don't feel like I'm going to shine in it and I don't feel like I'm going to walk into the office and feel really confident, then that's not going to make it into the work wardrobe. But I like anything where you can set it up and like forget about it. So the
Yeah.
work uniform for me was like an absolute game changer, like best thing ever. I am also a person who like if I find like a really good t-shirt, I'm going to buy it in a
Hmm.
few colors. Like if something
Yeah.
fits me really well, I'm going to buy it in a few colors. Um I same with like I love like I love all my rent and my bills are all they all come out on a direct debit. So like I'm not thinking
Hmm.
about that money leaving my account. It's not it's not a guessing game every month of, oh, what's the bill going to be? And like all my bills I found are on, and I think we've chosen this specifically, all of them are on a fixed rate every month. So they don't go up and down. For instance, like gas and electricity, we pay the same amount in summer and winter. And even though you use more in winter than summer, when you pay more in summer, you kind of build up like a credit with them that means that you pay the same. So that kind of thing, like keeping everything consistent, automating my savings to go out of my account like on day one of getting my salary. I love that kind of
Is
thing.
that,
And then,
I
like,
don't want to interrupt you, but is
no, go
that
for it.
for you with the energy consumption? Is that something that you've specifically set up for it to be a consistent number, or is that how it works
That's
in
how it
your
works.
building? Okay, okay.
Yeah. So you
That's interesting
can,
because that's
you,
so great for budgeting. And I feel like
I
that's different
know.
in other places in the world.
Yeah, so the way that it works, like with this company, is you can either pay a flexible fee, so you can pay what you use, or you can choose the fixed fee, which means that you do pay for what you use in a year, but like in summer you're paying more, in winter you're paying for more than you used, and then in winter you're paying for less
Great.
than you used. You're paying for less than you used. So yeah, I think any kind of system where I can think hard about it once and like then execute on it is like my like absolute dream, because I don't want to spend time, like I want to spend time enjoying life and doing nice things, and knowing that, for instance, I've done my saving and I've done my investing for the month, so anything else, any other money that I have this month is for me to just enjoy. I don't have to be like, oh, I can't actually go to this event, or I can go to this event but I'm gonna feel guilty about it because I really should be saving that money. No, my mindset has to be, because otherwise I get in that mindset of feeling like I'm not saving enough and I feel guilty for everything. My mindset has to be, you've done your saving, now the rest of the money is for you to enjoy. And how you choose to split that up, if you decide the whole month you're gonna eat tin tuna and you're gonna drive around in an Uber for the month, that's how you wanted to spend your money, that is up to you. There is absolutely none of that money that's in my fun money that I think of as money that I should be saving or investing, because there was way too much time in my life where I was thinking of every penny that I spent on enjoying life as an opportunity cost of, like, the opportunity cost was that I didn't invest or save that money, and it's just like not a way to live.
This is such a good reminder, and I feel like my husband is a lot like that. He will always invest the time to set up a system. And for me, I get sort of crippled with this effort block of like, I just don't have the time to invest to like really deep dive into this. But it's something simple like the type of car that we have, you can open the car with your phone if you set up the app within the phone. And like my thought of like downloading another app and logging in and doing all this, which sounds like ridiculous. Like it's not that heavy a lift. But in my head, it just felt like a block. And I
Yeah.
finally did it. And oh my God, has it changed my life just being able to like walk up to my car and open the door because my phone will
Oh,
just open it
I
for me.
love that.
Or like with anything like that, like just the little
Yeah,
bit of a system, like, oh my God, it can change your life. And
completely.
maybe it's compartmentalizing it and saying, okay, once a week, I'm going to optimize something in my life. Like,
Oh my God, I honestly love that idea. Do you know what has made me do that so much more is AI. Like I love Claude. I use it a
mhm.
lot. And it's made demystifying things so much more accessible to me. And for a lot of my life, for a lot of life before AI, I would just be like okay with like not knowing how to
Right.
optimize something. And I know there's been so much talk online, and I find myself falling into this trap too of like life optimizing and life maxing. And I don't think it's particularly healthy that we're trying to like, everything you do's got to be like the best thing you could do. But like a simple example is yesterday, my phone, well, actually for the last few weeks, my phone has been telling me that the storage is full. Okay. I pay for like the terabyte or whatever
Hmm.
of cloud storage, but every single day it tells me that my storage is too full. And it's a nightmare. It drives me insane. So yesterday I decided to talk to Claude and I said, this is what I've done. My phone is telling me that my storage is full, but I want to keep my videos on. I want to keep my videos on my phone because just in case I want to like re-edit something or whatever. And by doing that, it gave me such a sensible fix, like, and solved the problem that now I have like 8 GB of free storage on my phone. And like, if like in before AI, I would have just been like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to have to like just live like this and just keep deleting videos. But instead I was like, okay, no, wait, I'm going to take 10 minutes to try and work this out, because there's got to be a better way for me to be able to have the thing that I want, which is having the videos on my phone, but also have storage on my phone. And there we go. Like now I feel like so liberated.
I think that AI is going to improve our lives so much because of things like that, taking away the
Yeah.
barrier to entry for even sort of basic things. I know people are scared of it, but I also like when you said this, I think Apple is running a scam right now because I've heard like five different people say that they have
So the same
gotten
thing.
the your storage is full thing, myself included. And I
What is
also
going
have like my
on?
phone is now running slower. Like I know that they are doing this. So this is a class action lawsuit like waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But
No,
back
it's
to your
so
point of
infuriating.
yeah, life maxing and eliminating friction points. Like I've been trying to be very mindful of this and not be too judgmental about eliminating friction in my daily life. But what I try to do is add hard things back in. And so
Ooh.
for me, that has been quite literally lifting heavy things. So when I'm exercising now, like made it, I have not really exercised consistently in probably 5 to 10 years, which sounds horrible. Like it's been periodic things. It's only when I need to look good for XYZ, but there's no consistency. I'm now making myself do that. I'm making it almost feel difficult. And then when I go and exercise, I'm lifting really heavy things. And there's something primal about picking stuff up that you thought you couldn't pick up and actually doing it. And it's also dumb things like I would always just send my husband to the basement to get things. I don't like going to the basement. Or he's like, I get to be the passenger princess a lot and he carries my suitcases and he does all of my
Oh,
stuff. And like,
I
I
love
think that's
that.
chivalrous and I love that. And that's how
Same.
a man should be. But there are times where I put off like getting the suitcase from the basement when I can just go do it. And I'm making myself go do those little things. Even if it's just one thing a week, I'm
Yeah.
adding inconvenience to my life on purpose. And I
And
think
is
that brings
that
us back to reality.
okay? Interesting. So you think that is that does that make you feel empowered,
I
or what
think
do you
it
think it
does because
is?
you realize like, okay, I can do it all. And there are
Yeah.
times too where, I'm alone with my kids and I think, oh God, like how am I gonna do it, for these couple of days or something? And then you realize, okay, wasn't that hard?
Yeah.
Or people always ask me, like I fly back to America all the time and I bring my kids with me quite a bit. And they're like, how did you bring two babies on
Yeah.
an
That
airplane? I'm
does
like,
blow
I
my
just
mind.
did it. You just do
Yeah.
it. There
Yeah, that
are
is cool.
it's like you think like Kim, people are dying, it's
Yeah.
there are harder things in the world and like
Yeah.
me having to wrangle a couple of toddlers, like yes, it is difficult, but it's a window in time and you can make it
Yeah.
happen. And so I just try to frame that like, okay, I got 12 hours of tough work ahead of me. And then after that,
Yeah.
I get something else that I want, like visiting home, my family seeing my children, all these sort of things, them getting experiences. So I'm optimizing, but also trying to bring myself back to reality. Like my husband always jokes that I'm living at the top of Maslow's pyramid of needs. Like my whole life is self-actualization. And like he's the one at the grunt work, like going out and slaying dragons and like bringing home the bacon and stuff. But
Something I
I,
would
I,
add to your doing hard things list would be to understand your family's finances, just in case, touch wood, but like that needs to be added to your list. Like that's a mentally hard thing. Like
yeah,
that's a heavy lifting task for you mentally because it creates anxiety. You feel, I don't know, disempowered or whatever about it. And that's like actually something that would really benefit you long term
yeah.
if anything were to happen.
All right, so this is my therapy session. I'm going to write this down. So I have like my vision board behind me. I'm like, no, my finances. What I
Yeah,
also
you've
want
got
to
to know
do,
your
and
finances.
I got
You're
to
such
find
a
out if
like
there's some,
empowered woman, and you've got like. I'm surprised you don't know your finances. To be honest, like I thought you would. I thought you would know your things. So I
I
think
have my
like
separate things. So like my
yeah,
my America money and my life and those sort of things. I'm not deeply attuned to them, but our life here, I really am uninvolved. I pay some
yeah,
bills, I do some things, but I really don't. And you're right that it would be a lesson in stepping outside of the comfort zone. And then again, I'm looking at friends who are losing spouses,
Yeah.
horrible things happen. Like you just have to be prepared.
One of my like new favorite mantras is do it scared. Like
Mm,
obviously this content creation thing for me has come up very quickly because I started it in June last year, but it only really blew up in, I would say, from like March time this year. Like that's when I started Instagram, and that grew to like over 50,000 people very
yeah.
quickly. And I've had lots of other opportunities have come from that. And my mindset now is just like do it scared. Like it doesn't matter if you're terrified to do something, like just say yes and like work out the dramas of it later. Because like doing a podcast, for instance, like I've done 2 podcasts with another like a financial education platform. And when I agreed to it, I was absolutely petrified. I felt like I had such imposter syndrome. I was like, what the hell am I
Hmm.
going to say that's like of any value to anyone? Um, but I said yes, absolutely terrified. And then you do it and you're like, oh my God, it wasn't that bad. Like actually, I did add some value. And I think like you'll probably find that if you look, the finance thing scares you until you actually look under the hood and you're like, okay, it's not that bad at all. Like I can do this.
Well, that's the thing. It's like what is scary to you is just easy peasy to somebody else. And so I
Yeah,
see it in my life all the time. I've never had a problem being bold and putting myself out there. Like, okay, Sports Illustrated had a casting call. Yeah, sure,
you
I'll send them
went.
my video. Like, why not me?
Amazing. Yeah.
And then you get it. Like, or hey, I'm going to start a podcast or I'm going to do, XYZ. I've done a lot of crazy ass stuff in my life just for me able to put myself out there. And it's so funny the
For some
little
people, that's
things in your
terrifying.
head where you're like, well, I can't look at my bank statement every month. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's all perspective, but I would
So
love to know like
true.
if there's something you learned about money and finance that you felt like was like embarrassingly late in life that you learned about it.
Um, I think that would be for me the fact that a pension fund is an investment. Like I did not know that pensions and 401k was investing. So it took me a really long time for me to open up my own investment account. I only did that when I was 30, thinking like, oh, I'm too scared to invest because I'm too risk adverse, not
Hmm.
realizing that I've been investing since I was 23. So if
Right.
I'd known that earlier, that I was already investing, I wouldn't have taken that long to do it again, like to actually do
Yeah.
the extra investment myself. But yeah, I mean, the list goes on. Like there's so many things that I'm like a finance director. So if I don't know these things. Oh, the other thing that I think it took me really long to understand was to read a payslip, to understand how to read a payslip, like what all those deductions mean,
Mm-hmm.
what part is taxable, what's not. Um, yeah, that was also something that like I just had never tried to educate myself on it. It also just felt like a foreign language. So I just thought, I'm just going to trust that the company I work for knows what they're doing.
What is a money lesson that you think people don't learn until even later in life, like 40, 50, 60?
Probably that the more time you have money in the market, the better. So if you only put money in when you're 40, 50, or 60, which is when you start having actual money to invest, sometimes can be a bit too late. So you should be starting with the pennies when you are in your 20s, because that will grow to be something when you're 50.
What is the biggest financial scam that's completely legal?
I think probably the way that the marketers are allowed to market to women on, trading on insecurities.
Love it.
Like that is keeping women poor.
What do you think is something that people buy that screams like I'm trying to look rich or you're cosplaying rich?
I think cars are a big one. Like you never know if someone's car is financed or if it's, bought in cash. And often you can have someone with a really fancy car, but they like live in a really tiny house, or don't ever go overseas, don't get to travel the world, but they put all their money into being able to drive in the street looking fancy.
What is the most overrated financial advice that you see on the internet?
This could be controversial, but I think that you need to get on the property ladder. Like that's not the only way to make financial gains.
Love that. What is a purchase that people make that almost never improves their life?
Ooh. Well, pretty much anything because of hedonic adaptation. But I would say most of the time, buying into trends doesn't actually improve your everyday life because they have a shelf life. And then in 3 months' time, every time you look at that thing, you want to throw it out the window.
What's the most expensive lie that women are sold about money and investing?
That it's complicated and that you have a genuine interest in the stock market in order to be a good investor. You don't.
If you could sit down with a 25-year-old version of yourself for 5 minutes, what thing would you tell her about money?
I would say you're doing great, sweetie. Just keep putting in your pension, keep saving. I know it doesn't feel like it's amounting to much right now, but it will make a big difference.
How much of our spending do you think is really based around identity?
I think so much of our spending is based around us trying to find out what our identity is or shopping based on what you think your identity should be. And it might not be.
I love that. Well, at the end of the podcast, we always ask everyone, what is something that you've learned too late in life? So, what's that for you, finance related or not?
Okay, it's not finance related, and I learned it too late, and I feel like I've only learned it really in the last few months, is that you can make your life whatever you want it to be. Like, if you want to be a writer, you can just start writing, and then you are a writer. You can be a podcaster by just starting a podcast. You can become a creator by just creating. I always thought those kind of things were like reserved for other people, or I didn't think they were accessible. And by going through this content creation journey, I have just realized that like you make the move and then the thing happens, and it's like it's quite incredible. Like I wish I'd known that at 20.
Well, I am so glad that you have continued to create content because, for one, selfishly, I've loved following along. And
Thank
I
you.
think there's a bit of like an escapism when we follow people online. And I feel like I've done that with your content. Like when you're talking about gardening, I feel like I was alongside with you. Then when you're talking about finance, like I feel like you're talking to me. So, on a personal level, I'm very grateful that you've kept doing it. I'm
Oh,
excited to see where it goes, even if you pivot into doing something else in the future. But yeah, you should be really proud that you had the bravery to do it because I think, like you said, if you want to do something, you just do it. And there are a lot of people who stop before they get there. And I would say,
for
like,
sure.
success almost always comes to people who aren't necessarily the most accomplished or the most talented or the most beautiful. It's like they're the people that had the courage to keep going. So
Without a
why
doubt,
not?
it's like if you can be consistent, like you can get anywhere. And I mean, right back at you. I love your content. I love how direct you are. And you are doing such important things and hearing, the small creators who, that message that you sent me that day meant the world to me. And just like keep supporting women the way you are, because I just think it's so, so wonderful and so infectious.
Well, thank you. If there's somebody out there that wants to learn more about finance or just wants sort of the reminders on how they can build their hot girl habits, where can they find you online?
So I am on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram under Martha Stewish. And then I am on Substack. My Substack is called Uncompromising Curation, and I write a letter every Friday that explores money and identity and basically being a woman and elevating our lives now while building wealth in the future.
This was so informative. I think that there are a
Thank
lot of
you.
people out there who will feel the courage to start making small changes in their life to add value and no finances, be involved, and work on their hot girl habits.
Yay. Love it. Love what you're doing, Alan. Thank you so much.